How's everyone doing? How's everyone's Thursday or Friday or whatever the time is? Hope everyone's having a wonderful week. I know I'm having a great week. You guys ready to party? I'm ready to party. Let's go. Okay, guys, you know how it starts. THORChain is a decentralized exchange that enables you to swap Bitcoin with thousands of other cryptocurrencies. It's all layer one native tokens. No bridges or wrap tokens are needed. And this is all done within your self-custodial wallet. There's no KYC on THORChain. KYC stands for kill your customer. We don't kill our customers. We love them. And THORChain is permissionless. THORChain's token is called RUNE. That is spelled RUNE. You do not need to buy or hold RUNE to place a swap on THORChain. But the swaps that happen on THORChain, those fees are deducted and are used to buy RUNE, and this RUNE is the yield that goes to liquidity pools and nodes. There are no block rewards on THORChain. 100% of the yield is real. THORChain has another token. It's called TCY, Tango Charlie Yankee. This token is kind of like a preferred stock, okay, guys? So 10% of the protocol's revenue goes to these token holders. If you deposited crypto into savers or took out a loan on THORChain, make sure to claim your TCY tokens so you can collect yield. And anyone can buy TCY as well. To swap on THORChain, go to swap.thorchain.org. Use THORChain's interface, you guys. There's zero affiliate fee. If you notice any bugs whatsoever, please submit a request so you can talk out. But so far, I've heard it's been really good. And new features and functionality are going to be rolled out all the time. So let's go, you guys. Ruggiero is building decentralized Binance on THORChain smart contract layer. It's being rolled out as we speak. Super exciting, guys. And we're going to have a Ruggiero space this Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern. So definitely check out for that. We're going to have Pragmatic Monkey, and we're going to be breaking down all the latest juicy stuff. Speaking of Binance, guys, if you hold RUNE on a centralized exchange, get your RUNE off the centralized exchange and into self-custody because these tokens are being used to manipulate the price. Let's get RUNE into the system. And anyone's interested in bonding your RUNE, go to runebond.com. You can click on this profile. And then it's a real simple process of choosing a node, requesting a whitelist, and then bonding your RUNE when you are approved. Super easy, guys. Actually, RUNE Bond just released a video highlighting it. It is super simple. You guys, please repost the space. Let's get some people in here. This is going to be a community space, guys. We're going to get Chad up here. Anyone can come on the stage and ask questions at any time. This is what it's about. Is this a developer coming up here, having fun, asking questions, and reaching out to the community? I hope everyone's in there. Again, share the space, guys. Chad Barraford looks like he is up. Want to check your mic there, sir?
Hey, guys.
Chad, how's it going?
Not bad. How are you going? How's it going with you?
It's going all right, man. Super excited. I'm always looking forward to these spaces that we do now. I know the whole community is going. I'm really excited to get Kenton back as well. He's still in Aussie land, so he's asleep right now. But Kenton will be making a return, guys. So, all right, Chad, it's been a week since we did the last space, and everyone loved it, man. I know I did too. Any recent news you want to share at all with the community or anything like that?
Well, there's a lot of things, really, I guess, right? Let's see here. Well, so limit swaps was flipped back off. That was because of a slowness to the quotes API endpoint. And there was a change a little while ago due to the app layer that the API endpoint is no longer consensus breaking, or it is consensus breaking now, which means that any changes to the API endpoint has to go through like a full consensus kind of release, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. We'll deal with it best we can. So limit swaps has a patch in it for 3.12, which should be coming out in a couple of weeks, I guess. And then once that's out, we can flip limit swaps back on and continue that process. After that, rapid swaps. We'll do some testing in StageNet around rapid swaps, but we may actually do memless first before rapid swaps because I want to see limit swaps bake for a while to kind of prove its stability before throwing rapid swaps on top of it. So we might do memless. Inbound memless is coming out as part of 3.12, so that'll be on the chain in a few weeks. and we can flip that on and start doing some testing with that. And if you find any bugs, you can patch it and all that kind of stuff. That'll be pretty exciting. I'm hoping we could see some good new revenue coming, or new volume rather, coming from that feature. Um, and then the next after that is the intense slash opt-in chain clients. And there's a bunch of changes to happen around that. I've been working on that code this past week to support those things. I haven't worked on intense yet. That's going to come soon. But on the opt-in chain clients, opt-in validators, um, that's going to be a huge amount of work. That's actually much more work than I even thought initially. So that's gonna be it's gonna be about 20,000 lines of code, maybe 40,000 lines of code to get that changed. It looks like, I'm guesstimating. So it's gonna be a while to get that done, but it's something I am actively working on, which is pretty great.
Okay, wow, that was okay, guys. So let's just rewind it back a little bit. There was some little alpha drop there. So looks like rapid swaps want some more time for limit swaps to bake. So memless likely will come first, which I think is really huge, Chad, because I actually have a lot to ask about that. But
Sure.
that's gonna be huge. And then well, let's go. I'm going to go back to the last thing you just said. The intense opt-in chain client stuff that we're doing here. I actually had a question about that. So,
Shoot.
before, all nodes, they had to run a daemon of each individual, chain. Now you can do RPC. One question this is something I just don't know a lot about. I actually have a question about the Bifrost daemon.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how does the Bifrost daemon work on the node side if they only have a small amount of nodes that they run? Because my understanding, the Bifrost daemon, that's a heavy daemon to run for obvious
Mhm.
reasons.
Mhm.
Is there complexity there for you, or does it really matter how many nodes or how many chains nodes decide to run relative to the Bifrost daemon?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you can always scale the Bifrost with giving it more RAM and more CPU as part of like the Kubernetes setup. Um, we've talked about in the past about having like multiple Bifrost daemons. This one does ETH and Bitcoin, and this one does Monero and this and whatever the chains might be. You could do it that way too, just kind of scale. You call that scaling horizontally. And it's an engineering term about scaling vertically or scaling horizontally. Vertically is just taking the thing you already have and just making it taller, meaning more memory, more CPU, beefier box, beefier pod, whatever you want to call it. And scaling horizontally is just like more instances, more copies, all doing the same work, collectively doing more work. You can scale it either way. I'm not terribly concerned about it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's going to be an ongoing problem, like of like being performant with Bifrost to scan all these different chains. Like it's going to be an ongoing issue from time to time, but it's always a solvable problem, and that's something I'm terribly concerned about for the most part.
So if the Bifrost is tall, the Bifrost, it's not like an all or nothing thing, right? Like maybe a couple chains on the tall Bifrost, if you will, can go down, but the rest would function. Is my understanding correct, or what would you say about that?
Um, yeah, change will operate just fine as long as the 2/3 of the validators who are validating that chain are functioning. So if you've got like 100 validators and 20 of those validators are offline, or Bifrost is falling behind on some chain or whatever it is, it's a non-issue from the protocol's perspective. It's still able to get consensus through the 2/3 majority of the network. That's why when people have outages, individual operators have outages, it doesn't really generally affect the network as a whole. Where that changes is like, we had a situation recently where Binance Smart Chain just had a very large influx and traffic, and transaction volume on their blockchain. And, more or less all the validators were having a hard time keeping up to the tip of that chain just due to the volume. And so we came out with a small patch just to make that kind of EVM Bifrost kind of daemon much more efficient. So it could handle a higher volume of transactions per block, and it's an efficiency thing, a performance thing. Those things are usually fairly easy to address for the most part.
Gotcha. Okay. So the big topic that was going around that actually I did not know during the last space that we did last Thursday is Monero and the
Mhm.
importance of memoless relative to adding something like Monero with ring
Yep.
signatures and all this stuff. And so a lot of Monero people have actually been popping into the Telegram and reaching out to me asking about Monero. So maybe this is a good time, since we've discussed memoless, to go into this a little bit. Like, so what does memoless do for us when it comes to adding a chain like Monero with ring signatures, obfuscation, and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, like most chains have a way of doing a memo, right? In Bitcoin world, they call it an op return. Um, and different chains can implement their memos differently, and also can have different limitations, right? Last time I looked, I haven't looked. It's been a couple of years, so my information might be out of date. But last time I looked, I think they were talking about changing the memo size to being a maximum of 16 bytes on Monero. I don't know if they've actually made that change or not. They may have, and may have not. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. I have to go look into it more detail. But if you've only got 16 bytes, like it's not a long enough space to put in, an address that you want to swap your Monero to Bitcoin with, right? It's just not enough space. So memoless just makes it so that the nice thing about memoless is one of the nice things about memoless is that it just reduces the requirements of the whatever chain we want to implement or what chain we want to add to THORChain. Because right now we have a kind of requirement that you have to have like a decent memo size. The smallest right now is Bitcoin. It's about 80 bytes. And if you have anything less than that, then it's problematic. I mean, even Bitcoin by itself right now is somewhat problematic with like DEX aggregation or more complex memos, and that are like longer in size. It's very difficult to use that swapping from Bitcoin. Or if you get into like the app layer, even more difficult there too. So different chains have different limitations on these memos, and by removing the memo as being a requirement of the chain, then we can we can support more chains that maybe don't even have memos built into their chains, theoretically.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. This one I think about a little bit because and to be fair to the audience and to Chad here, this is something I don't know a lot about. So I'm curious. Let's do hypothetical land here. Let's wave a magic wand. All right.
Yep.
Let's say Monero is added, however it's done. I'm curious how people like regular community members like me or maybe node operators like how does the monitoring of Monero swaps work on THORChain? How can people guarantee solvency? You know what I mean? Like, how does that? Could you maybe talk a little bit how you foresee that happening? Because that's one thing I don't even really know much about, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So I am not a Monero expert. I'm not claiming to be one. I don't know a whole lot about it. We did get it working on THORChain back in like 2021 in terms of like that component of it. It wasn't me who did that work. It was another developer. So, and they're much more knowledgeable than I am on this particular topic. But as I understand it, so part of the issue is that um, when you send funds, right? Like, so if you do a swap to Monero and the network signs a transaction and it sends, 10 XMR tokens to some address, the network in its whole, but also the community as a whole, doesn't know where the funds went. So somebody could come to us later on and say, "Hey, I swapped, I got 10 XMR, but I never received it. Never came to my address." And we wouldn't have an ability to say you're right or to say you're even wrong. We wouldn't know if that was the case or not. So as I understand, there's like a kind of like a private key, or I think it's called a view key or something like this, that is a way of publishing the kind of the private key, not of the wallet, but of the transaction, sort of. This is my understanding, which hopefully is not too far off from the truth. And so it's a way of, you can post this in a way so that it proves that the money left this address and went to that address. So in that particular instance, it would be revealing where the money went on a public scale, so that everybody, including the validators, can validate that the money was sent, and it was sent to the right amount, the right address with the right amount and the right memo or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And sorry for my pausing there. I was communicating Telegram, telling people, "Hey, we're talking about Monero right now." So, okay. All right. So that's the way that people might monitor it. And yes, so I believe it was called Black Protocol was our attempt back in 2021
Mhm.
to add Monero. This is where I'm not sure if I'm correct in the details. From what I remember is, there was maybe a little bit of something going on with the multi-sig wallet that we
Yeah.
could use as like a middle ground. Some people say that's right. Some people tell me that's wrong. But is it to say like the technology we're in a better spot now, or maybe do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So the blocking thing before, like there's a lot of technical complexity around adding Monero. But those are technical problems, like they are largely solvable, right? And I think we've already put the code in like years ago, which has to be refactored and blah 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 today. But um where did I go with this? What was your question?
So the I talked about the multi-sig, like it
Oh,
is
right.
right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the problem was the blocker was that GG18 at that time, which we use GG20 today, is not really compatible with Monero as it is today. Like you can't really use it in the same way right now. And so we were going to use back then, we were talking about instead of using virtual signatures, which what we use today for all of our chains, we were saying like, well, what if we try to use the multi-sig that's built into Monero, right? And you could do that. There's some complexity around that, but it's theoretically possible. But the problem was that the devs of Monero were saying at that time that they were saying that this code is not really great code. We would not recommend it for production environments, so forth and so on. I think there was already been like a couple of exploits in the multi-sig for Monero at that time, and the devs were kind of actively recommending to not use it in production environments. And of course, we're going to follow what their devs say. We're not going to use it. If they're saying it's insecure or they're not sure about it, we're not going to put, potentially millions of dollars behind it at that point. So I think what's changing now is that JP is working with the team to refactor the GG20 code as it is to be able to support Monero's like cryptography, so that we can actually secure things with TSS. Once we've done that, that's like the part that we haven't done before. Everything else, while it is time consuming, while it is a lot of work, it is solvable.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, so those of you who are just checking in right now, I want to remind anyone, if anyone has any questions or anything like that, they can come up on stage. This is an open stage, okay, for everybody. But I just want everyone to understand that THORChain in the past, definitely, I mean, we want Monero on THORChain. I think the ethos, everyone believes privacy for all. This is not trivial at all. And actually, this reminds me, Chad, what was it? XHV Haven? We had
Haven,
Haven.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that was
That
a
was a Monero fork. Those I think they're doing like a stable coin, right? If I remember correctly. That was
yeah,
a couple of years ago.
right. Yes, they had a stable coin.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking to Haven back then as well. I mean, we were interested in working with that team as well at the time. Um, but yeah, but Monero is not it's probably is like Monero is going to be the hardest chain to add. Like there's no other blockchain in the industry than adding Monero, in my opinion. And it's probably the reason why Monero isn't supported by any DEX, cross-chain DEX out there, to my knowledge at least. Um, it's definitely a very challenging one, but it's a good one to have, right? Because like there's such a privacy-focused community, which is that's obviously something that I support. Like I support privacy in general. And I think historically, it's always been a little bit of a hot button issue. Like for some validators, they wanted Monero. For some validators, or like they were concerned about people, siphoning funds through THORChain, illicit funds, and hiding through Monero and whatever, and getting more attention from governments or whatnot. Like that was one of the concerns that some people were having, which is like kind of one of the benefits of doing this kind of like opt-in chain security thing we were talking about earlier. Is that like if validators feel uncomfortable with this, they don't have to like leave the protocol and like go fuck off somewhere else. They can stick around. They can still validate Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever other chain, and then just not do Monero. And if you are a person who wants to support Monero as a validator, you can go ahead and validate that one, and then you also get the yield that comes from that, all the swaps and trades happening.
Right, and exactly, because that was the big thing, especially during the last regime the United States was under. A lot of people were super scared, and scared in general around the world, not just related to the United States, of privacy and what that could mean for them personally. So, this isn't little kid stuff, right? This is definitely a real and serious thing that people have to think about. But I would be very excited if we did do this opt-in chain client thing, and if there was only like maybe a quarter of the nodes that wanted to hold Monero would still work. And if the swap volume was incredible, well then those nodes and the bond providers of those nodes would really just eat very, very well. I mean, I think that's gonna be
Right.
a really interesting thing, going
Right,
forward.
like you're kind of a lot. One of the things that's kind of nice I like about it is that you're allowing capitalistic markets to come into play, right? Like if a how many validators are going to want to validate some chain is probably going to be relative towards the amount of fees that it generates, right? Like from a logic perspective, some people are just like, I'm a Monero fan. I don't care how much the fees are. I'm just going to support it because I love Monero so much. Like some people, it might be like that, but like you're letting like the capitalistic markets come to play and say like, oh, this chain gets a lot of fees, this chain gets a lot of little fees, and then how much validators we have per chain, I would assume is going to be somewhat relative to its fee volume to some degree.
Yeah, 100%. And for those who are wondering, we mentioned Haven earlier. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but that's actually kind of a tragic story. So we were going to add Haven, but from what I remember, the chain client was not built up to um, to the quality of the core devs. And actually, Haven had a very unfortunate demise. There must some sort of infinite mint bug or something like that, and their total supply went like exponential, and so it basically went to zero. So I think we kind of dodged a bullet not adding Haven. Is that what is your memory the same on that, Chad?
Um, I know we talked about that with Haven. I don't think we were ever actively working on a chain client with them, not that I can recall at least. I thought it failed because their stablecoin lost its peg. But I haven't been around for a while. I mean, in that community since for a long time. So maybe something's happened before that or after that point, rather. I'm not quite sure. But
Yeah,
like the problem with like even with Haven, it's the same problems that exist as with Monero, the same challenges I should say about like how do you secure it, how do you confirm publicly that these transactions came in, these transactions went out, right? How do you support a chain that has a 16-byte memo? These are all like challenges that have to be solved.
yeah. And again, man, my memory could be wrong too. I thought, from what I remember, it was a long time ago. It was 2021. I thought the Haven team was working on the chain client, and they submitted it, and it was rejected. I could be wrong about that. It's been a
I can
long time. I
I
thought.
don't remember that, but it could be true, possibly. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. 2025 right now. 4 years in crypto is a long ass time, man. 100%. Okay.
Yeah.
S-
But
s-
one of the things like I'm trying to work towards kind of in this realm here is I want to get it so that we can have like a Thor node team, like a team that works on the chain itself, the THORChain state machine, and then a separate team, kind of like a Bifrost team, right? And that Bifrost team is really just managing the Bifrost kind of code, but they're just going to be constantly working on like adding new chain clients to support more chains, and also like improving performance and reliability, maintenance, that kind of thing, so that like they can move independently of the Thor node code and just independently just go as fast as they want to add a new chain, whatever chain that might be, whether it be Zcash or Monero or you know whatever, Tron, Solana, whatever.
Okay, so actually I was on like a little podcast thing yesterday with a different group, and they're really excited about THORChain and investing in it and all this stuff, and a lot of questions. So one thing they asked me, and
Yeah,
I said I didn't know. They said, well, how many developers are kindly working on THORChain? I was like, well, that's kind of an interesting question, like directly on THORChain or like the wider ecosystem, because there's a lot of elements to this. But so let me talk about developers for a little bit. So um so are we pretty much like on a hiring blitz if possible? Like if the talent's out there, we just want to get people on board to, to basically make these separate teams, and so we can really scale this thing?
Yeah, in a sense. How many developers there are, it depends on like where you kind of draw the line. There's people who work on the core protocol. There's people who work on the infrastructure around the core protocol, like Nine Realms, for example. And then you have other teams that build, dashboards and like, that kind of stuff. I don't actually don't even know how many developers actively work on THORChain. You think could the app layers do, like RUNE, for example? I don't even know what the number is, to be honest. It's gotta be if you made me guess, I would guess probably 30, 40, 50, something like this. If you forced me to guess. The core protocol itself is still a very small team. It's always been a very small team. It takes a long time to learn this code. So even if you hire new people, they generally won't be very useful for the first, 3 to 6 months because they're just getting their feet wet. They're just getting their kind of like understanding that code base and the complexity and intricacies of this code. So it's even hiring new people, like it takes a while before they really become like proactive members, contributing members of the code base.
Right. And you know what's funny? You said I see Ryan in the audience, and he said the same exact thing verbatim you did about, I think he said like 3 to 6 months. I mean, you can hire as many people you want, but it takes these people. This is such a, complex, nuanced protocol. 3 to 6 months to get up to speed before they can actually do something.
Yep.
And I think these developers, you guys are worth your weight in gold, 100%. It's not trivial at all. But I really like that because now, Chad, I feel like we've entered a new chapter, especially when it comes to developers, because now we have the RUNE aspect, right? They're building these amazing DeFi primitives, and they're no longer, there's no need really. I mean, there's a need to communicate, but they can kind of do their own thing now. And I'm really
Mhm.
excited. I think this would be really cool to have select teams that specialize, like you said, on the Bifrost side, the chain client side, the core protocol side, things like that. And we really, this gets me so bullish, man, about the future. I really feel like we've entered a new phase of just maturity and sophistication with our talent.
Yeah. 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 I think we have to. I think we're focused more on stability as a protocol, like having the core protocol be as stable as possible. And the things we're adding now to the core protocol are things that are like very high value and relatively low risk. They're not risky features like limit swaps, for example. It's not a really risky feature. I don't consider memless to be very risky. They're pretty safe features in the sense that there's not a lot of like protocol risk to these things, but they do add a lot of liquidity or volume or functionality or value to the protocol without giving like that much risk. Like THORFi was obviously a riskier feature, obviously, and we're kind of moved away from that mentality. We're moving towards things that add value with not much risk.
And I think everyone here understands that, and they love hearing that stuff. Back in the day, right? THORChain, we were the pioneers. We still are the pioneers in many way. I mean, we're forging the path, and in order to forge the path, you've got to take risks. You got to kind of hack in the jungle and make your own way. And sometimes it takes you to a cliff precipice. Sometimes you strike it lucky, and you really win. So this is, for me, it's largely unavoidable. You got to venture out and really take these risks. So I love it, man. I really feel like, as hard as it is, here's the thing that reminds me, it's being perfect is impossible, especially when you're doing something new, but you just got to be mostly accurate. Like, I feel most people, if you make 100 decisions, you make 99% of your decisions is correct. Like, you really can't go below before. And THORChain's done that, where like every code change, everything we've ever done, it's been 99.9% right. It's like if you were a person and let's say you got like 98% of your, like, you're still okay, you're starting to fumble around. But if there's like someone out there, like let's say they had a 90% decision correct, like one out of every single decision they made was incorrect, like they're going to fucking prison. You know what I mean? Like, that's complete. You cannot function. You know what I mean? At all. So really, the bar is quite high. And so if anyone worries about our mistakes, the vast majority of the decisions we've made have been successful, and I think that's proven. But this new level,
Yeah, well,
man, it's really cool.
I mean, everybody makes mistakes from time to time, but we've
Absolutely.
we've been around for a very long time, and we were like kind of like part of the OG DeFi kind of world, right? We're almost just as old as almost any other DeFi protocol. We've been around forever. We've survived through major events, both positive and negative. Um, and not every choice we made was the correct one, as it would be on any protocol. Every protocol has made different mistakes. That includes Bitcoin, that includes Ethereum, that includes just about any one of them you can think of. But the fact is, like, if you can survive those things, that's more telling than anything else. And if anything is like kind of shown is that, like, even through kind of like the darkest times of our kind of our history as a community, we've still gotten through it. We still survived it, and we always come out stronger on the other side. Um, we need some more time in that sense for us right now, and we're actively working to that. We're putting a lot of energy, time, and effort into this protocol and into this development to get it not only from the development side, but also from the community side, from integrations, from partners, all that stuff, marketing, all this stuff is being pushed quite hard by a whole host of people. So, and it makes me feel very bullish in the end. We have very smart team and people, very capable people around us, and people are shipping like crazy, and that's what you want, right? You don't want a dead protocol, you want a shipping protocol, and it's very easy that a lot of these protocols, and I'll pick on Litecoin for a split second, just because Lee was saying that he regretted building Litecoin, but like it's easy to get to a place where like it's just no longer actively being developed, right? Because there's just no interest to add things or fix things or anything like that. But that's never been us. We've always been like shipping, understanding the market, making pivots when it makes sense to, and listening to the larger community.
100%. Very well said. And I'm just looking at all these wonderful faces in the audience. I see Impossible Hunter. Impossible Hunter was with me on stage during some really hard times back, in February. And everyone I'm looking at, Leo Bull, you got Cal Slam Bammer. Just the strength and the resilience of this community is what really gets me excited. And I just thank you all so much, with the Coke, everyone out there. It's just amazing. I see a lot of new friendly faces in here too, which is really great. Guys, I'm going to do a slight recap on the space. Again, if anyone wants to come up here and ask questions, this is an open stage. Chad's here for you. If you don't have questions, I think that's actually a bullish sign. That means we're doing an okay job communicating to the community. But guys, you have any nuance questions, anything like that, it's an open thing. But for those who are just turning in, just give a quick recap. So, limit swaps, they are back online. We're going to let that code bake a little bit. Chad said we're going to go to probably do Memolist first before rabbit swaps. We're going to get to that actually in a little bit here. I'm really excited to hear that. And we talked a fair bit about Monero as well. So if people are just tuning in around, if you listen to the recording, hopefully, if you had a question or you're interested in that, we do that. We got a request here. We got Frog. Okay, awesome. Let's talk about Memolist real quick. Chad, this gets me the most excited about Memolist because I think about this all the time, the game theory. I know we talked about this last time, but the idea that, and I know Scorch is definitely, and Kenton are thinking about this too, we could get a Memolist interface generator that people can make their own interface and put it over their business web page or whatever. That to me gets me the most excited. I just think that is just such a solid 0 to 1 to THORChain where anyone and everyone can use THORChain check easily. What say you, sir?
I certainly agree. I think what's will be interesting. You can like have these like like the internet has like these little like widgets. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like these little like boxes where you can look at the weather or some other kind of functionality. And it wouldn't be like that hard to, or you can do it like an iframe theoretically, but like it wouldn't be that hard to have some code that you can basically just copy and paste, and then throw it on your web page, and it'll just a fully functioning UI where you can do swaps and trades, and it wouldn't require much in terms of infrastructure from you. You could just rely on somebody else to manage the Memolist part of it. Or if you wanted to do it yourself, you could do it yourself too. Like that's fine as well. That's either way is fine. But just to be able to just kind of copy and paste some code and throw it on your website, and then all of a sudden you have swappability, on whatever webpage.com. I think that's quite interesting.
100%. I totally agree. You guys, I hope you're super excited about it. I know I am. We have a speaker up here. We have Frog. That is a great name, by the way. And it looks like you may be interested in Monero. If you want to go ahead and test your mic there, sir or madam.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
It's going well. What do you got for us, Frog?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, like THORChain is awesome. I've used it a lot. It's a very valuable project, has a lot of utility.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
So, my question is how long is it gonna take to like add Monero and like have it on mainnet, assuming like everything goes good?
Uh, that's a hard question. I'm not sure if I even want to give you an answer to your question because it would be pretty far reaching. Um, like I said before, it is Monero is the most difficult blockchain to integrate with in a decentralized way. It's fairly easy if it's like centralized, but we don't do that here. So it's very difficult. It all depends on how fast the dev team that's being hired to work on like improving our threshold signatures to work with Monero. And then probably after that, it would be another, I would say, 2 months, I would say, of development work to get it there. Once we get it on StageNet, it's good to go pretty much, other than testing, of course, and validation. But the code is done there. The code is done. You could throw it on mainnet at that time, and it would probably work just fine. Obviously, you want to test it on StageNet first for a while, but I don't know. It's a good question to ask. It's a fair question to ask, but I don't want to give you an answer just because I don't know how long it's going to take the team to refactor the threshold signature so that it works with Monero.
Okay, that's fair. It seems like a few months, right? If everything's
Yeah,
goes
it's
well.
at minimum, I'm going to say 3 months. At minimums, I'll say 3 months.
We also
Okay, that's awesome.
we would also need memoless swaps to be live too, right, Chad?
Yeah, but Memless is like coming out in 3.12. That's going to hit
Gotcha.
mainnet, in like 2 weeks or something like this, 3 weeks, something like this. And there could be bugs with that to fix or whatever. That's totally possible, right? You never know. But I'm sure Memless will be live on the network way before Monero is possible to ship.
So Chad, you mentioned like there was the pain point with like the multi-sig, and then JP was working on like some specific thing you guys have to
Hmm.
do. And like you're saying it might require the help of Monero devs. So like I've been following the Monero community, and like there's I don't know, there's like a lot of like pushback, and like I think it's just one dude who got like I don't know, like shafted by THORChain devs like back in the day or something, and he's like the main guy who's like working on like Monero,
Hmm.
and like so what happens to like if they don't want to help you guys? So, like what if they're like we're not gonna help you, we're not gonna like tell you the code or whatever?
We don't, to be honest, we don't really need their help. We could do it without them. It's not a requirement to have them involved. Obviously, we prefer to have them involved. Like it would be a helpful resource, and we always want to add new chains in a collaborative way with the other community and other dev team. It's always better to do it that way. But it's not a requirement. I know we've opened up a request for funding from the Monero, community. I think that's being voted on. I don't know if it's going well or not going well. I'm not quite sure. But even if that is rejected, it's still we could do it on our own without them being involved at all. Um, it's up to us to make that choice.
Okay, that's really reassuring to hear, because I would hate it for like a select few number of people to kill it for like, a 5.5 billion dollar market cap coin, right?
It's no, it's to be honest, I understand and respect the Monero community. I know that not everybody is excited about integrating with THORChain, and everybody is entitled to their viewpoints and all that kind of stuff. But like, here's what doesn't make sense to me from a Monero perspective is that like you have this privacy token that is preserving your privacy, whatever. But every time you want to go in and out of it, you have to go through a centralized exchange. There might be some kind of edge, kind of semi dexes somewhere on the internet that has almost zero liquidity. I haven't seen one that actually has like a good amount of volume. personally, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Happy to learn if I'm wrong. But like you need to have a decentralized way to get in and out of Monero. Like its value proposition is not really realized until you can get in and out of it without doxing yourself. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me to not support, THORChain. You can make like arguments about security in the sense of like, oh, you got these ring signatures, and I think there's like 10 transactions within a single transaction, and 9 are fake, and 1 is real. And when you trade with THORChain, it doxes the other 9 to be the fake ones, and you can make arguments like that. And I'm not even saying that's wrong necessarily, but like, it's kind of a small price to pay, at least in my opinion, to be able to get it to cleanly get out with volume in and out of Monero, and like that's a good thing. And by the way, like generally speaking, whenever you create another on ramp or off ramp of a token, especially one that can support volume, like it's almost always good for the coin price, right? The more velocity you have of a token, like the velocity of money affects its value as well. So you add something like a THORChain that could do millions of dollars of transfers, swaps in and out of Monero, like that's good for the Monero price as well, and therefore good for the community as well. So I understand and respect the Monero community, and there's some hesitation on that, but part of me is just like, we would do so much more. We bring so much more value to the Monero community than I think they're given credit for.
Exactly. And look, like I'm a member of the Monero community. I hold a bunch of XMR and I support you guys. So, I don't think it's everyone. Like it's just a few people with loud voices, I guess.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, like I said, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just don't get it personally.
We have a new speaker up here. We got Slam Bammer, a node operator. Welcome, sir. You want to test your mic?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Can hear you,
Yep,
man.
hear you.
Go ahead.
All right, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I love joining these spaces. Unfortunately, I'm traveling, so I can't stay on this too much longer. But I will say I'm really excited. I think the whole chainnet idea is great. I think opt-in chains is exactly what the protocol needs to be able to scale really efficiently. Um,
Mhm.
I will say that while I am very excited for Monero being added, I think this is going to put additional strain on sort of the marketing side. Like I know many others have had, run-ins with people like Tay and things like that, and I'm just saying, um, whatever this, sooner or later, there's going to be another hack, and then all of that fire is going to come down on us about us being the money laundering protocol and things like this. I don't think those arguments are fair, but I think that we need to use the time, while the code is being tested, to prepare ourselves to deal with these narratives, because I'm almost certain that they will come. So I'm I'm I myself am here for the long run, but I think we as a community need to also prepare for that, and what we're going to do to win those people over as well.
Yeah, what's interesting is like I actually don't think, maybe I'll be eating my words someday, but I actually don't think that Monero will be like kind of this center of illicit funds that some people suggest that it is. And the reason why I say that is because the vast majority of like large exploits are happening on, Ethereum for the most part. A little bit of Bitcoin, but mostly Ethereum. And almost every time there's been illicit funds being moved through THORChain, it's always going like from the Ethereum blockchain to Bitcoin. That's the vast majority of times, at least in terms of dollar value, that's true. Um, and they don't really care about privacy in that situation. Like sometimes they go into Wasabi wallets or something like this, and sometimes they don't. But like, I'm not sure if it's worthwhile, because the Monero pool probably won't be nearly as deep as the Bitcoin pool. And so getting to Monero would be like an expensive thing, or at least time consuming if you're doing a streaming swap to move large amounts of funds in and then out. But then like, once you get in, you say you've ciphered $300 million into Monero or whatever, and so through some sort of hack, like how do you get it back out without like people being obvious? Like $300 million trade goes into Monero, and then a month later, $300 million trade comes back out. Like it's pretty obvious. Like you know what I mean? It's pretty obvious in that case. You have to bleed it slowly, and da 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 da. It's more complicated than I think people give it credit for, you know. Um, but I think a lot of time when people do these hacks, they don't really care so much about privacy so much. They just create fake identities on centralized exchanges and then exit through that methodology, and they pay a little extra to those centralized exchanges to be quiet about or look the other way about their trades or something like this. You know, some of these like not so large but large enough centralized exchanges are a little bit crooked in this way. You know, like it's funny because like I have a beef with like people who give THORChain kind of a hard time about illicit funds, whatever it is. It's just like, okay, but like almost every DEX has that. At least the ones that have volume do, right? Like Uniswap sees it all the time, and I rarely see Tay criticizing Uniswap. It's only THORChain, and it's just like, all right. I mean, call things what they are, but at least be consistent. You know, don't give like free rides to somebody else.
Yeah, look, I mean, I 100% agree with you. Again, I'm just sort of trying to be a realist as to whether the criticism is fair or not. I feel that it's coming, and I think those few of those points that you put out are true, and it's just making sure that we as a community have that counter narrative to offer as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of for me. I'm not worried about this at all. I think everyone here has ammunition. Let's take the Bybit exploit for a second. Was it $1.5 billion? The Bybit exploit?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that went through THORChain. I mean, I can only speak. I'm going to speak about my country, guys. But anyone in here, whatever part of the world you're from, you can take the anecdotal equivalent to your own nation, and I guarantee every single one of you, your own government, your own wherever you live, your locality has wasted exponentially more money than that. My own country is over $37 trillion in debt. How many billions are in 1 trillion? There's 1,000, right? And we're talking about $1.5 billion of money that was taken from a centralized exchange that did not have, good security when it came to securing that, right? And this, here's the thing I tell people, Chad and Slamback, it's like THORChain is the solution. It is not the problem. I mean, this community invented a technology, Voltisig, which would prevented the exploit. THORChain is trying to take away the ability for people to steal these huge funds of money that are custodied by third parties of a centralized exchange. THORChain doesn't want to custody anyone's funds unless they want to contribute it to the pools, right? So for me, the easiest argument is look at your own government and how much they've wasted, and the ultimate, like the real criminals of all are them. And secondly, THORChain fixes the problem that results in the vast majority of the illicit funds flowing through blockchain by removing the need for centralized exchanges to begin with. This is an easy argument, I think, for us to beat.
Yeah, the funny thing is that like when people give like crypto or THORChain a hard time about like illicit funds, blah blah blah, whatever, I kind of like a part of me that kind of laughs about it because at least in the American system, right? Like no bank ever goes to prison, right? Even though they commit financial fraud and crimes all a live long fucking day. Like I actually looked up how much money have American banks paid in fees to the government for you know uh, whatever, like moving illicit funds, blah, 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 like committing fraud, aiding Jeffrey Epstein, for example. The amount of money they've paid out is like greater than the market cap of like I think it was like Ethereum at the time or something crazy like this. Like the American banking systems that commit crimes all the fucking time. And sometimes they get caught and sometimes they have to pay fines. Like I know somebody who works in regulatory finance, and they caught somebody stealing funds from their clients, and the way they did it was that like every time there was a trade they would get like a little bit of money, so they just like hyper traded all day and like slowly like bleeded out the account to I don't know how much money. They got found out, they got brought to criminality, and they got paid a fine that was less than the money they took. That was less money than the actual money they took from the fucking person that they were robbing. Like, this is the American system today, which is so fucking asinine, I friggin' can't even stand it. Like, you can't prosecute a person when it comes to financial crimes, like in within the context of banks, because you have to prove intent, which is like nearly fucking impossible to do. And so nobody ever gets held accountable. They hold the bank accountable for some amount of money, which in some cases is less money than they fucking stole to begin with. Like, it's such a fucking weird and corrupt system. And it's corrupt because you have very wealthy people, i.e., people who own fucking banks, paying massive amounts of money to Democrats or Republicans or whoever the fuck's in office at that particular time, and they get like really lenient laws that allow them to conduct crimes without any of them actually taking any responsibility for any of that. Like, I have such a an annoyance with people who want to yell about crypto and how, there's illicit funds and all. It's like, are you kidding me? There are so much illicit funds happening in the TradFi sector that nobody even bothers to investigate half the time. Like, get out of town with that. It's such a ridiculous, hypocritical perspective.
Excellent. Well said. And yes, I actually know exactly what you're talking about. I'll give you another anecdote of, there was I can't remember the name, a big pharmaceutical conglomerate, and they were getting sued for $1.1 billion, and they were guilty as hell. But what they ended up doing was getting a certain attorney general elected, right, paying them under the table, getting them elected, and then that same pharmaceutical company, they avoided the lawsuit. It got thrown out. All they had to do was pay $250 million fine, so $250 million. So they went from 1.5 billion to a quarter of a billion, right, just by electing the right person. Another example, in California, I know somebody who owns an electric company, right? They do like basic infrastructure repairs on houses. And there is a fund in California where they have to spend amount of, check out this incentive. They have to spend a certain amount of money each year so they get more money next year. They had $250,000 they needed to spend, and they didn't know what to spend it on. So they called up this electric company. They made a fake invoice, sent the money, and holy damn, they got 20 more millions the next year. It's a joke, you guys. And as someone, it's a, I don't want to swear. It's a joke. And as someone who's a political, like I am an elected official, I've gone to Super. These people are gaslighting you into oblivion. Fuck these people. We are completely in the right. We are solving this problem. This is why I am so fired up. I was extremely politically active, not because I'm a GOP supporter. It's because I'm buying time to give THORChain the ability to build out this tech so robust that we can't be defeated. That is my total raison d'etre. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm up here right now. Let's go, you guys. We got it, Chad. We got it, Slam.
The big difference, one of the most massive difference between what it is that we do on THORChain and in the industry as a whole versus what happens in traditional finance is that we're honest. We're transparent. Everything we do is in freaking clear text. The code, the transactions, you friggin' name it. Almost everything is, with the exception of Monero or Zcash or these kind of things. But like 99% of like all fucking transaction in crypto is publicly knowledge. And how we work, how we operate, how these DeFi protocols function, that's clear and tell too. Everything is honest. They will never do that. Traditional finance will never be honest with you. They will never be transparent with you. They will do whatever they can to obscure the dark pools and whatever the hell they want to do. And they'll do that all live long day and then point the finger at us like, we're the friggin' demons. Are you kidding me? Like you said, we're the antidote. We as an industry, not just THORChain, but the larger crypto industry, can solve problems that they can't. I mean, it's structurally, we were in such a better place than what is possible for them to do. And it's remarkable to me that it's taking this long for people to figure that out.
Yep. And so, guys, we gave you some arguments. There's so many more to be said here. You be ready, because to Slam Bammer's point, and I've said this a lot about my protocol ever since they've added Zcash. Yeah, the dummies are coming. The morons that are going to say that we're the bad guy for wanting to do privacy, they are coming. Be ready. Practice the arguments. These are not hard arguments to make. And if anyone wants to do like a practice run with me, I'm always available. We are right. We are, of course, right. We will always be right. So when the time comes, be loud, be vocal. And I am beyond, sir. I believe the first principles are clear. People will rally to our side in droves like we will never have seen before, because what we are doing is right. I am not worried about that at all. It's going to be dicey, though, but it'll be fun. And that's what I'm here to do.
What we're doing is for the people. Like, There's no benefit to it outside of like just operating for the people to give them choice and options and clarity and transparency to people to conduct themselves in whatever kind of financial situation they choose to. Like that's a structurally different mentality. Like everybody else in traditional finance back there, they're just honestly looking to screw people over as much as possible. Remember when Wells Fargo just started opening up checking accounts for people without their knowledge or awareness? Remember that? It's freaking wild that happened. Wild. And almost nothing came out of it. It's incredible to me.
Oh yeah, the bankers destroyed everything. What was almost 20 years ago now, and they were bailed out instead of thrown in prison. It's a joke, you guys. It's a joke, man. We could go on and on about this and 100. Oh my lord, I gotta have to go work out after this space. I'm getting fired up. My dog giving me the side eye right now. It's like, Dad, are you okay? You know what I mean? Oh damn, it's
don't judge me, dog. Don't judge me.
Yeah, I think he kind of understands actually. You know what I mean? He's oh my lord. Okay, guys, let's reset just a little bit. Anyone come up here and ask a question? Slam Bammer, I want to kick it back to you. Is there anything else that you want to say? Anything you want at all, man? That was a great question, by the way. We got a lot of content out of that. He might be a little indisposed right now. Slam Bammer, are you there? I'll give you a couple more seconds. By the way, Chad, you had a banger of a line. It was probably like 10, 15 minutes ago. It was like when you're talking about Monero and you're like, yeah, we could centralize it, but we don't do that here. Oh, I hope someone clips that. That was a badass line. It's like, yeah, we don't ever do that shit here.
100%. It's not our style.
No, definitely not our style at all. Okay, guys. So Slam Bammer, if you want, you can, but I got something else I wanted to ask as well. Something I was going to ask you, and then you got rugged, unfortunately, last week, but that's okay.
Oh yeah.
It's what it is. So, beforehand, we were talking about the infrastructure of THORChain, and that we're going to be adding a lot of things. We're talking about block time, and that might come down a little bit. Blah 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 blah. One thing I really wanted to ask you is this transition that will maybe make sometime in the future, DKLS, or whatever. I'm curious. Okay, so that's a very fundamental change, go testing, StageNet, all that stuff. I'm just curious from a protocol perspective, when let's say the update, the nodes upgrade that, what is the redundancy plan in the case it just doesn't work? We had a consensus failure, or I don't know, whatever. I'm kind of talking on my butt right now. Is that something that we can just be ready and release and go like revert real quick and just carry on? I was just curious your opinion on that.
Yeah, so you can't really revert it. So like once you migrate from special signatures GG20 to DKLS, the private keys are associated with that new DKLS. I don't think you could actually come to think of it, you might be able to reuse the same shares and go back to GG20. That actually might be possible. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. But I think the intention that I have is that we first have to get the code done. Specifically, we have to get what's called identifiable aborts functioning, which is not typically implemented for DKLS 23. But we're getting a team to work on that for us because I'm not a cryptography expert myself. I want to deploy that on the Maya protocol first. And so I want to work with them because there's obviously a lot less at risk for them than us. And then we can kind of test it out there in production for a little while before we put it on ours. Of course, we'll test it beforehand. We have unit tests, integration tests, simulation tests, StageNet tests up the wazoo. But and we also do what we do before we start sending funds to some address. When we do our migrations, we always do a signing. So when we produce a key gen to produce the new public keys, before we send any funds over to the new addresses, we always just do like a test signed, like just sign something, hello world, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, just to prove that we can actually before we start sending funds, we can actually sign a transaction out of that wallet before sending any funds into that wallet, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense, and that's actually really interesting. So it's that's going to be a really monumental transition for us. And God bless my protocol for existing. I'm so glad that that makes me really happy to hear. It's not that they're a guinea pig or anything. I know they'd be happy to do it, but I think that's actually really helpful to have another protocol that we can bounce things off of each other, right?
Yeah,
fantastic.
us putting the engineering effort into supporting DKLS, Maya gets that value as well inherently, right? They can just pull over the code into their own protocol and upgrade themselves. And so them doing this for us, would I think would be a way of like kind of, giving a little head nod and appreciation for us putting in the engineering work to make this possible, and for them to help us kind of get it over the line in a sense. It's a nice like collaborative work between us and that team, which I very much appreciate.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know they'd love that. I mean, it's yeah, exactly what you said. So, yeah, that'll be a very exciting time, man. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's probably, I don't know, I don't want to speak too ahead of myself, but from what I understand, I mean, that's going to be the next sort of thing coming up relatively soon, right? Is starting to think about these optimizations for THORChain proper, if I'm not mistaken.
You mean after all these like major
Yeah,
features?
yeah, after like rapid swaps and memless and all this stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what else is there,
Well, now that we have the app layer, like a lot of things can be built there instead of built on the core protocol, right? So there's not a lot left after that, at least not from my perspective, which is a good thing, 'cause it means we can head towards ossification. We can just focus purely on, stability and maturity and this kind of stuff, and working on things like DKLS, which is, has no value to the protocol in a volume or or liquidity sense, but it just gives us a stronger kind of security position and kind of opting into a more secure, a more mathematically provable, secure kind of cryptography. So yeah, it's a lot of it's just going to be just like refactoring, cleanup, paying down some technical debt here and there. I'm actually personally excited about working on things outside of the core protocol, but for the community, right? Like, implementing AI, for example, is a big thing that I'm interested in doing a lot more of, like implementing AI as a developer on the THORChain project to help us, like for example, I wanted to build. I actually started working on this past weekend a little bit, but like I wanted to start shipping the Thor node logs into into a database, and then having AI agents read the logs almost in real time, and then look for weird stuff that's happening or errors or something that doesn't look right, and then investigate those errors, make a code change, open up a merge request, and then like present the information, the data to the dev team to like merge it or not merge it or edit it or whatever it is. So to actually start to build like AI agents that are like actively part of the protocol, like not obviously in the network itself, but like to the side of it, and constantly monitoring it for anything weird, anything interesting, anything that's slow or whatever, and then just start like diving into pulling metrics and data, telemetry, and anything you can grab to kind of inform it of what might be happening in that particular moment, and then analyze the code, figure out what might be an interesting way of like fixing this, whatever this thing is, and then submitting a pull request or a merge request to the dev team to investigate and hit the merge button or not or whatever. Right. To me, that's like a really fascinating way of like shifting THORChain's development to be more like AI driven. Obviously, this is like a very long term like perspective. It's not going to happen tomorrow or anything like this, but we are kind of heading in a kind of a AGI kind of road in a sense. We as the human race, I want to be active about how we can utilize that technology to best sort out issues, problems, identify security problems, or whatever that might be, and actively work to support and protect the protocol.
That's actually a really, you know what? That is, guys, I hope you just listen to that. I think this actually may be the first time in the history of any THORChain space it just happened where we said the O word, we said ossification, and we actually kind of meant it. Like now we are thinking about this transition for real. I mean, we've always said ossification. I think we've always talked about it, but it always felt like it was more than arm's reach away, right? We've always had, there was a distance there, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chad, this may be the first time ever that we are now really thinking about ossification. Like, we've kind of done it. I mean, I know there will
Yeah,
be advances coming. There'll always be optimizations. It'll never truly end. But in terms of major features, in terms of just groundbreaking things, I think we're about there. And Chad, I'm curious from your perspective. This kind of goes on the personal level a little bit. It's not really. It's like, to me, when I think about it, I think you guys, you, Code Hans, Orion, anyone else
Mhm.
in here, you guys might be one of the last like human developers, like actually making your own code before this transition takes place. Like, how do you feel
Yeah, in
about
a
that?
sense.
How do you feel about that, man? What's that? How do you maybe you haven't really thought about it? I don't know, but maybe
No, I have thought about it. It's funny because I was probably like 6 months ago, I think it was, or something like this. I was talking to JP, and at that time, I was not inside the THORChain community. I was kind of taking my little break there or whatever. And JP was like, talking to me. He's like, "Yeah, you should come back to the protocol. You should, work on this and work on that." And at the time, I was like, "Well, I'm actually kind of interested in working on these other ideas that I want to build, these other kind of concepts, and I'm actually fascinated to work on this possibly." And one of the things he said to me, which was funny at the time, and it makes more sense today than it even did 6 months ago, but he said like don't do that because like THORChain will be like the last thing you ever really work on because at some point in the nearest future, AI will be building all these things for you, and you're not going to be like, building in the way, at least not in the way you historically have done. And it was kind of I took it as almost like a half joke at the time, but also like half depressing. Do you know what I mean? Because I do want to work on things. I do want to build, other concepts and protocols and whatnot. But it is a funny thing though. But it is changing, and what it looks like, what it means to be an engineer is fundamentally shifting over these last like 6 months or a year, and I'm sure it's going to fundamentally shift again in another year.
well, like, and guys, I'm talking to everyone here. I mean, you got to imagine 10 years from now, I think we will all look back upon these days with just absolute fondness of this journey that we've all been together. I mean, it has been such an incredible ride, so many ups and downs, so many hurdles, so many debates, and sometimes very intense debates as well. But I think these days, I mean, THORChain will be, I firmly believe this, just be something that the pinnacle, one of the pinnacle things that really was developed by humans and will stand the test of time. And
Yep.
yes, will be revised and revisions and optimized by, AGI, of
Forked.
course, forked, yeah, forked, but it will be humanity's just cry for freedom, right? That's what I think of THORChain. That's what I've always thought is THORChain. And
Yeah.
ossification, man. That word's hitting me hard right now. Ossification. We are approaching it. So, man, how exciting is that? Sad,
It's
but
it's
exciting.
funny because like I remember like in the very early days, this is like in 2019. JP and I were working on this thing together, and we were talking about all sorts of different ideas and concepts, and debating back and forth, and dry erase boarding and this kind of stuff. And we always talked about ossification. We called it planned obsolescence at the time, but more or less the same thing as ossification, sort of. We've been planning about it and talking about it since the very beginning, which is like over 5 years ago. And if it does finally feel like we're close to it, maybe within 6 months we can get there. I'm gonna guess, maybe a little bit longer, but like maintaining the core protocol will become just about maintenance, and a lot of the energy is just gonna be focusing on like mostly on Bifrost and just adding more chain clients, adding more chains, and that kind of stuff. I don't think there's a lot of like big features to add after this point. I mean, I'm open to change my mind if something comes up and somebody has a really great idea that I haven't thought of, or whatever. If an idea of value comes forward, then it will be considered. But I don't know what that would be at this point. I think we've pretty much like solved all the problems for the most part, and we just have a few more things to kind of button up. But after that point, I'm not sure what else we can do.
Yeah, maybe in 3 years, like we're balls deep into something else, and we've totally eaten our words right now. But
Maybe,
I'm, but I'm,
possibly, yeah.
but I'm with you actually, because I think of all the problems that THORChain was intended to solve, and really I think has solved. I'm running out of ideas. I mean, my list of first principles, that's all I think about is first principles. It's getting kind of low, I really don't know.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
but I think a lot of the good ideas that will come out in the next like year, 2 years, 3 years, will be probably just ideas that you can probably just throw on the app layer. you know,
Right.
and build it out that way. And you don't really need, doesn't have to necessarily be to the core protocol, because the core protocol is really just focused mostly on security, and liquidity, volume, being capital efficient, these kinds of things, and not trying to go beyond that at this point. And then if you want to go beyond that, that's the app layer. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Guys, I want to make another shout out to the audience here. If anyone wants to come up and ask any questions whatsoever, we kind of went on a little bit of a philosophical journey here, but very, very fun. We have a request. Let me see. Oh, we got Slam Bammer back. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, guys. Again, if anyone has any questions whatsoever, please, this is your time. Chad's up here. He wants to talk, but I try to take questions throughout the week from people. So, if people not coming up here asking questions, maybe I'm doing a good job crowdsourcing them. But yeah, very, very exciting. Slam Bammer, are you there? Maybe not. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Go
I
ahead,
am
brother.
traveling, so my connection is a bit spotty. First of all, Patriot, you're doing an outstanding job with these spaces. You are insanely active in almost all spaces across THORChain, which is outstanding. So yeah, you're definitely doing a good job there. Just on the topic of ossification, I think one of the things, I know we've talked about it, and the stance for a while has been it wasn't needed, but I think at some point it would be good to expand the number of active nodes. I know that there's a technical lift that's needed to do that, but I think it would open some space for new joiners to come. And I think the more node operators we have and the more distributed the network is, the more resistant it becomes to, any regulation or attack. So I think that's something that I'm also definitely interested in.
Yeah, I think in terms of like adding more nodes, like I think there's a hard limit right now of like 120 validators, I believe, and that's set by the Cosmos SDK itself. It's a configuration, you can just change it to 150 or 200 or whatever. I don't actually know how many validators we actually could support and not start to have like block issues. But I do know that there's a lot of work being done within the Cosmos space, and like new kind of underlying technologies that are being worked on by various people at different like positions of completeness. So there could be some advancements in the Cosmos SDK itself, in the future, where we could upgrade to that, allows us to have more validators than we have today. But as of right now, though, there's no limit, or like there's no need for more. There's no need to make any code changes to support more validators, because we can already support another, what is it, 7 right now? How many validators do we have now?
110
110 or
something.
50,
Yeah.
something like this. I haven't looked in a while. Look it up real
Yeah.
quick out of
I think
curiosity.
gosh, I can't remember. I thought it's like 111, 112 or something. Oh, and by the way, guys, we're approaching almost 1 million rune burned. Or yeah, rune that's been
Oh
burned. That
yeah,
is really cool. Looking forward to that.
that's cool. 109 validators. That's the actual number there. 109 validators today.
There you go.
But yes, I do agree with Slam Bander. Like, more validators there's not much of a negative for more validators, except for Slam Bander, because for Slam Bander, somebody who is a node operator, you don't want more node operators, because that just means you get less of the pie, at the end of the block, so to speak, right? So if you're self-interested, as a node operator, you probably don't want to
Yep.
see more node operators.
Look, definitely. But on the other hand, one of the reasons I love working on THORChain and with THORChain is there's a lot of people in this community who are not just in it for the buck. There's a lot of people who have a lot of principles. And I had a lot of support from people like Scorch, Rune's Hard, and D5 Sammy, and I'm paying it forward as much as I can as well. But there's a lot of people in this space who truly believe in the mission, and I'm one of those. So I'm more than happy to do my part to help expand.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, God bless you, man. That's awesome. And yeah, shout out to those guys. I mean, Runetard especially, and good job, Slam Bammer, to you for doing the node drills. the node drills, man. You have been doing such a great job on that, man. And what is it? It's only been like what, mere minutes of response time for the nodes usually. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, Slam Bammer?
Yeah. So I've picked up on that from RUNE. We've done a few now. I actually have been thinking about stepping it up, especially with us adding a few things like the limit swaps with the app layer that's starting to come online. I think it's important that nodes are vigilant. There's definitely a few people who are incredibly dedicated operators, and we've had immense response from them. Um, like you're saying, it's a matter of seconds, and they hold the protocol, and then we get it up and running again. But there's definitely the responsiveness is there. I think, Chad, some of the things that you were talking about having Bifrost logs passed by AI, I think those things are also incredibly useful, and we could probably feed those into some of the alerting as well. Would be great. But yeah, I think it's great to see how much the community is also focused on the security and the stability of the protocol. And this is what I try and say. I think I said it on the last space, I need to put this out more on Twitter. You know, in in software, I work in software, and we can release a program with a bug, client's unhappy, but we fix it within a few days, and life goes on. If we have some level of bugs on THORChain, there are massive amounts of funds at risk, and so the amount of testing to get things right first time is great. The track, sure, as you said earlier, Chad, there have been mistakes, but the work that the team does to get things right first time, I think is truly impressive. And yeah, so there's a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do spend a lot of time not only just developing whatever feature, but making sure it's unit tested, regression tested, simulation tests, and then StageNet testing on top of that. So it's pretty extensive. I'm not aware of other dev teams in this industry that go through that much, extent to do that, to that much testing. But like also like a vast majority of the code we change, it doesn't really change the security in the sense of like the how funds are secured, like the threshold signatures themselves. But we also always have to be cognizant that any change could create an opportunity or some exploit potentially in the code that could be exploitable. And that's why we have like monitoring tools all over the place. We have solvency checkers, we've got delayed outbounds, we've got tons of features, both on chain and off chain, that are constantly monitoring activity on the network. And also the community itself is also like actively involved in this process as well, which is so funny because I remember, I can't remember who it was like a couple of years ago that like all of their funds were stolen, and like no one just didn't realize for like a week. Like the funds were gone. It was like hundreds of millions of dollars just like left, and like nobody knew it for like a week and a half or something like that. And that's just like, to me, it's like kind of crazy. But and thankfully we're not in that we're not in that pool. We've got lots of infrastructure sitting around and to ensure that's not the case.
Yeah, maybe we can talk just a little bit about that, about the professionalism of the dev team. I remember, I think it was 2022, maybe it was 2021. It's hard to remember. It's been so long, but we had one of our first consensus failures after an update. And it was hard. And, the thing with the consensus failure, it's really hard to figure out exactly where they lost consensus on, right? And so I think
Right.
it took us a few days or something like that to figure it out. But because of, the constant trial and effort, Chad, from my understand, it's like you guys invented your own way to efficiently and quickly figure out. I mean, it's still really hard, don't get me wrong, but an entire
Yeah.
methodology to figure out consensus failures, right?
Yeah, I vaguely remember this. The problem with the consensus failure, and there's different forms that it can take. But let me just define the word for this so the industry can understand what everybody can understand what I'm talking about. When you have all these nodes, right, and in a blockchain, they all have to agree on the state of it, right? What the actual conditions are, the data that's being stored. Everybody has to agree with it, and if people don't agree with it, that's what we call a consensus failure, right? Because different people have different ideas of what the state of the chain is, or how much Bitcoin is here, or how much this is there, or whatever it is. That's what a consensus failure really is. And there's two forms that this can happen, and they're both referred to as consensus failures, although you could argue not one, but it's commonly referred to that way. One is that you have some sort of problem in the code that it's not able to produce the block. It's trying to execute some bit of code like a trade or a swap or withdrawal or whatever it might be, and it just blows up. It just got some error, and the whole thing just panics, and just the process instantly dies, and you never actually get to the end of the block, right? And those are easy to kind of troubleshoot to some degree because you usually have what's called a traceback, which tells you exactly which line of code had the blow up. And then if you know the exact line of code, then it's typically fairly easy to figure out what the problem was in that scenario. The second type is when you get to the end of the block and you just disagree on what happened, right? So an example of that, how that might happen is, when you do what's called floating point math, when you have decimal points and numbers, different CPUs will calculate that differently. So like you ever seen on a calculator where it's just like to do infinite repeating, it does like 3, or they add like a 4 in the end. Like different computers will actually, and because you have that, then you don't get consensus because everybody has a slightly different number. That's a kind of one example of that. But the problem is that when you get to that type of consensus failure, you don't know what is disagreed upon. You just know that people disagree on what the state is, but you have no idea, and it tells you nothing about what part of the data you disagree on. Then it becomes extremely hard to figure out what they are actually disagreeing on because you don't know. It doesn't give you any information about what it possibly could be. And then it becomes like a needle in a haystack scenario, and it's just very difficult to work it out. But we did in that instance. It took us a while, but we did in that particular instance.
Yeah, I remember, and that was really interesting. And then you guys then formulated a structured way of how you would approach consensus failures, in the future. I mean, like we said earlier, it's really nuanced, complicated stuff. Doing
Yeah.
this, and yeah, exactly. We do have a new speaker up here, Marcus. I don't know if I've ever spoke to you before. If you want to test your mic.
Hey, yeah, pretty long time community member, maybe not a long time
Awesome.
speaker. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, glad to have you. What do you got for us?
Dude, it's crazy. I actually clicked the mic by accident. I tried to unclick it, couldn't do it. So
Well, you're up here now, so you better ask a question or I'm gonna be pissed off.
yeah, I mean, feel free to kick me.
No, bro, it's good. Hey, good to hear your voice, Marcus. Well, awesome, man. Well, I was looking at your profile and you're all into AI, applied AI research. I'm like, oh, maybe he's going to ask a question about AI tooling for Chad when it comes to the protocol. I was getting really excited.
Yeah, I was just talking about AI and the protocol and how it can help us, build, develop, maintain, troubleshoot, bug fix, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've taken a look at what's being built in Git on chain for protocol. So would probably love to get a quick catch up there. Maybe 5 minutes of reading. See what I would need to kind of get in there.
Yeah. Oh, you should do it sometime if you got the 5 minutes to spare.
You were meant to click that mic button, buddy. See, this is the universe telling you that you were supposed to be up here and have this conversation. So take it as a sign, brother. To kick it back a little bit, Slam Bammer, we're coming to an hour and a half, guys. If anyone has any questions, please request now. I want to make sure Chad, we don't take too much of his time. He's already very generous as it is, but I want to kick back to something Slam Bammer is something one of the last things I do think about when it comes to ossification and making the protocol stronger. I do agree with him, although we need more volume, but more nodes. If the node count was 200 plus, man, I don't think I would have any other really concerns. And yes, because let's say there's 100 nodes now, 200 nodes, you are getting half the rewards, I guess, roughly, if I'm not, but if the volume goes up 10x, 100x, well, then, you're still making far more. So, I think the room to grow here is still very, very much,
I mean, you could make a reasoned argument that as a node operator, you don't mind taking a smaller cut of the rewards of the block if it means somebody's buying up 100 million RUNE off of the market. and pushing the price up
Well
to some
said.
larger number. So it's like I don't mind taking a 50% cut in my node yield, so to speak, if it means that like the prices go into 4x because somebody's buying up 100 million rune off of the market.
Right, and also, there's more security in THORChain, so it kind of makes the Rune asset overall a better, more secure asset in itself too, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of positives for more node operators. So, yeah, I totally agree. And like I was saying, man, we figure that out, then my brain doesn't really have any more, yellow or red flags at all. It's, of course, there's always bugs that can happen. That's always an example. That's always an existential threat or whatever. But yeah, then I really feel like, man, we're just there, like we've done
Yeah.
it.
It's interesting kind of like debate or kind of discussion is that we've been doing this, and I think Familiar Cow has been leading the way, but we've been doing this kind of experimentation around how many basis points, do we want our trades to be on THORChain? Because now it's ever since we created a streaming swap, that's now just a configuration of the protocol rather than whatever the pool size is. And the question becomes like, what do we want our fees to be? Do we want it to be high fees and generate a lot of yield for LPs and node operators and whatever else? Or do we want low fees and get more volume and be more competitive in the market? Like this is an interesting debate that to me doesn't have a clear cut answer to it. And I can see arguments on both sides.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad we're actually experimenting because I love data. I don't really like ambiguity of trying to run mental models. Let's just play with the fee structure and just see what happens. It's a complicated thing, right? Because the market environment is always dynamic, and maybe there's slow days and fast weeks, slow weeks, fast weeks, or lots of swap volume here, blah 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 blah. But generally speaking, I think the metric that they're using is the oh hell, what was it called? The percentage of the total market, like the captured volume, like what THORChain, like relative to the whole market itself. And I think that's probably a pretty useful metric if I'm thinking about it correctly.
Interesting.
Question: is there any like public data on like how much it costs to run a bare metal node?
Yes, absolutely. And I can get you all that information here real quick. Go ahead, Slambammer. You're the perfect speaker of this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, DM me. I'm happy to talk you through that.
Yeah, I would say like this is my opinion. If you have the technical knowledge and experience to like, if you're going to go bare metal, I would not even go hosted bare metal. Like I would just find a data center somewhere around you and rent out a rack and buy physical servers and install it in that rack. Like and the reason why I say this is because it's like it's so much cheaper than renting bare metal or renting infrastructure from whatever cloud provider you want to talk about. You just save a lot more money that way, and you become you get to keep your yield more.
100%. I'd echo that. And yeah, I also don't necessarily think if you go hosted, it's probably maybe a little bit more stable. And obviously you've got people on hand to shout out if things go down. But yeah, I've found it a lot better in the long term to go bare metal. And I will say, on the subject of the fee experiment, that week when we were trying out 1 basis point, that was a painful week.
Yeah, that was pretty much 1 basis point is just how low can the arbitrageurs go, and man, they can get it really low. So that's not a lot of income for the protocol. So, but hey, it's data. Marcus, since you're up here, if you have any other questions about running a bare metal node, or if you have any other things, I'll go ahead while I got you here, man. But if not, no big deal.
Yeah, no, I remember chatting with like THORChain Bull like a long time ago about the cost he was like bearing running a bare metal node, doing like the cost benefit of like running one versus like how many more node providers, node runners could get on the network before he was in the negative. And that was the kind of question I was.
I remember that.
To me, it's like if you think of it more broadly, like it doesn't really matter how much it costs to run bare metal in a data center somewhere, or running on some sort of cloud provider or whatever. Like it doesn't really matter because in order to run a node, you got to have 800,000 rune or a million rune, whatever the hell the number is, and you're going to be your swings in your day to day of like how much money you're going to earn or lose based upon the rune price appreciating or depreciating in whatever direction. Like that's really what's going to be swinging your income or losses, whatever. Like that's really what's swinging it. It's not so much the $1,000 a month or $5,000 a month, whatever you're spending on cloud infrastructure. If you're already like close to $1 million in Rune or whatever, then that's what's really going to be kind of dictating where channels.
Chad, did you just get rugged?
Nope.
Hopefully not.
Okay,
good. Yeah, you had a robot voice at the very last thing. Say, okay, perfect. You're still here.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, and additionally, Marcus, and I remember that, by the way, the THORChain Bowl doing that. There is so many new guides out now as well. I mean, Slam Bammer will hook you up with all that stuff, but really, and another shout out to the community. I mean, just people from their own initiative, just making some of the most helpful things ever to just bring and onboard more people. And Marcus, if you ever decide to go down that route and you need some bond providers, I'm more than happy with this account to do a space with you, like I did with Slam Bammer or any other node operator who happens to hear this. If you want to do a space to get some more bond providers, I would love to do that for you. That's my goal, is to increase the security of the network and get as many node operators as we possibly can to reach that magic 120, and then bond wars happen, and then people like Chad really feel the need to thinking about scaling the numbers of the node operators. So yeah,
could happen.
Yes, sir. Okay, well, Chad, we've gone for an hour and a half, and damn, I really think we've talked about a lot here. Again, I want to shout out to the audience. If you guys want to speak, ask questions, please do it now, because otherwise, unless you have something else, Chad, I think maybe we can, or Slam Bammer or Marcus, we can probably wrap this up.
Yeah, we can probably wrap it up. I'm about ready.
Yeah, I think so myself. Okay, guys, I'll give a few more seconds. But again, you guys, Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, we are going to have Rujira space. So all the Rujirans in here listening, whether live or the recording. And remember, guys, share the space. This was a dynamite space, another banger. That's all we do. We just make banger spaces now. We don't make boring spaces. It's awesome. Pragmatic Monkey's going to be there. Chad, if you want to show up for that space, having more developers is great, if you want to come, but I don't want to pressure you because you've already given so much of your time. But guys, that's going to be a killer space. So make sure not to miss that. And then I think the week after, oh shoot, I should have been ready for this. Give me a second, guys. Let me look it up here. I think we have Redacted after that. No, I'm sorry. We have Houdini Swap on the 25th of October. That's the next week. And then we have Redacted that we're going to do a space for Redacted. So that's going to be a really cool privacy one too. Okay, guys. Is there anything else, Chad? I think we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, man. A good space.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you again for the time. I'm really excited to do it next week. Slam Bammer, any parting thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I just have to.
No, just thanks so much for all your hard work.
Oh, I know. Thank you, buddy. I mean, it's a shared endeavor. I mean, we're almost there, you guys. Just a little bit more. We're almost to the promised land where we have infrastructure, a THORChain and my protocol and Rujira, and everyone can do whatever they want. No KYC, permissionless privacy. God, I can taste it. Can you guys taste it? I can freaking taste it, man. It's awesome. Is coming. It's awesome. Really awesome. The best feeling ever.
We're shipping.
Damn right we're shipping. If there's any developers out there, yeah, you'll be in kindergarten for maybe 3 months to 6 months. But if you want to help with the most revolutionary protocol that's literally taking humanity to the next step of freedom and finance, you need to reach out to THORChain, the place where shit is being built. It is sick. Come on over. Come on, let's go. Okay, you guys. Thank you again, Chad. I really appreciate it. We're going to wrap it there, you guys. Have a rest of your weekend, or your week and weekend. I'll see you all Saturday.
All right, man. Later, guys.
Later.